What's up, everybody? Today we have a very special episode. It's first of our Lab to Life series from the Pharmacology Department at UNC Chapel Hill. Nicole Arnold from the Pharmacology Department was nice enough to let me strap a microphone to the podium and let you listen in on one of these very unique talks that happen in the Pharmacology Department at UNC. The guest for this Lab to Life series is Dr. Lisa Crose. She is a scientific and regulatory specialist at Camargo Pharmaceutical Services, which is a full-service drug development consulting company that specializes in the 505(b)(2) pathway. Now, that sounds really complex, but Lisa explains it all in the podcast. And if you're still confused, you can look at the show notes. We're going to provide some supplementary resources there. Essentially, Camargo allows drug companies to interface with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, that's the FDA, to figure out exactly what they need to do in order to prove that their drug is safe, effective, and worthwhile in terms of drug approval. This process is super important when designing pharmaceutical drugs, and it was very nice to have Lisa come and talk to us about not only how that process works and how she facilitates it in everyday work and responsibilities, but also how she got there, because that's not necessarily a traditional path for a PhD student such as myself in the pharmacology department to pursue. So I thought it was very inspirational, and Lisa goes into a little bit of her backstory, which involves working at Duke University Medical Center for over 6 years. So again, I want to thank Lisa for coming in. I want to thank Camargo for letting her show up at this meeting, and especially want to thank the pharmacology department for putting this on in the first place. Without further ado, Dr. Lisa Crose, everybody.
To thank Lee for the invitation to come back home. I'm really flattered, and it's always great to have an excuse to come back to campus, and I see some familiar faces out there, so I'm really glad that you guys could join, and hopefully you'll get some tips about how to transition away from academia, but also just, my goal here is to share my experience. It's just one experience and kind of how I fumbled through getting to where I am now, but I hope that what I want you to know is, because you've trained in academia, and for me, I trained in academia a long time, grad school and postdoc, this isn't the only thing you can do. You have a lot of options. And so I hope that, as we go along and as you have questions, please just raise your hand and I can answer them as we go. And also at the end, I want to make sure we have a lot of time to discuss things, and I'm very open to answering whatever questions you have. So, Lab to Life. And when I told my coworkers I was doing a Lab to Life seminar, they said, well, that means that before you were here, were you not alive? And I said, no, I don't think that's the intent. Yes, you're in the lab. Where am I going? What am I doing? But anyway, so again, thank you for the invitation. It's really my pleasure to come back. So just an overview of what I want to cover today. I want to tell you my story from coming to UNC as out of undergrad all the way through my postdoc, and then transition to where I am now at Camargo Pharmaceutical Services, and then give you an idea of, what I do in drug development and regulatory consultant. And then, that seems kind of abstract because I'm guessing none of you have really worked in the industry before, so I want to explain what the day-to-day is like and what I actually do. And then the things you have to think about learning, the skills that you need to transition into a job like this, but also emphasizing the things that you can do now, the things that you know how to do now that will transfer into a career like this, and also how to position yourself for a career outside of academia. Now, disclosure statement. Again, like I said, I am one person. This is my story. I don't have all the answers, but I hope that you can pick up something, that could be useful for you in this talk. So just to give you a brief overview of who I am and where I came from, I did my undergrad at Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa. My background was in pharmaceutical sciences and biology, and Lee and I were just reminiscing about Lee was one of the people that recruited me here, and I'm very glad that I did come here. I had a wonderful experience at Carolina, and I came straight in from undergrad into the pharmacology department. As Nicole said, I worked in Gary's lab, and straight from there, I went to Duke University and did, at the medical center, did a postdoc there until 2015. And my research focus at the time when I transitioned into a postdoc, and I don't know if this is still true today, but the emphasis was really, identifying a disease and understanding mechanisms and developing models. And that was really a way to position yourself so that you could, if you were going to go into academia, taking a piece of that work with you. So a lot of my work was developing mouse models and cell-based models of a rare pediatric cancer called rhabdomyosarcoma, and also using our learnings from that in identifying targeted therapeutics in that area. Now, additionally, as you all know, your education and training doesn't happen in a vacuum. In 2018, I got married, and, my husband and I settled down in Durham. And that played a role in kind of how I made some of my decisions moving forward, because as you all know, this is a great place to live. I didn't want to move away. When you're looking at an academic career, you're applying all across the country and you don't know where you're going to wind up. But for my husband and I, that was one of the things that played a role in me staying locally, was being able to stay here where I had my network and my base and my support. So with that being said, in my postdoc, I use the analogy that being in a postdoc is like being on a merry-go-round. You're on the merry-go-round, you're having a great time, you're doing research, you're being productive, but you never know when to get off. You're having a great time. When is the point where you say, I'm going to go and I'm going to become an independent investigator, or I'm going to go into another field? This moment had happened to me around 2014. I had been in professional development at Duke preparing to transition for an academic career. I had had some success. This was one of our articles we published and had a cover. I had secured my own independent investigator funding, and things were looking up. Things were great. I was applying for academic positions and nothing was happening. And so I think a lot of people, I was looking around at my peers, and we were all super successful, and everyone was having a hard time finding an academic job. And so I had to pause for a moment and think about this, and, what was I going to do if I could not find an academic job? How many years was I going to apply for academic positions before I moved on and either did something different, or, I kind of had this, I wouldn't call it a crisis, but just trying to figure out where I was going to go and what I was going to do with my life. And I also fell into this, thinking of, well, here I am as a postdoc. I've published, I've secured funding. I consider myself to be reasonably successful, but what distinguishes me from every other postdoc out there? We all have a very similar skill set. You line up our resumes and you're like, wow, these people are all amazing. What would distinguish me from anyone else? And if I wanted to transition outside of academia, I don't have any experience doing anything. And so I started to expand my thinking. And this was a really important point for me, because I considered myself a tried and true academic. I loved research. I loved academia. I loved doing all of these things. And I never really broadened my mindset into considering other careers. So I went through all of these what ifs, right? And so when I started looking at other career options, I thought, well, gosh, I don't have any experience. What if I transition to a job that I hate? What if it's boring? What if I'm just driving myself crazy and I left this really cool academic, career behind? What am I going to do? And so at this point, I just went to seminars like this where I met former postdocs, listened to what they were doing, how they transitioned. And I was a little bit frustrated, I'll be honest with you, because I would see these presentations and I would think, wow, wow, these guys had such a great plan and they knew exactly what they were doing and what they wanted. And I didn't know any of that. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I would go to these things and I would think, gosh, none of this seems like a good fit for me. I really wish that there was a way for me to get some sort of experience before I transition into a new career, to at least find out if I actually like it, if I would like my coworkers, if I would feel intellectually engaged every day, because that was a really important thing for me. And so I started connecting with people that I had met throughout my career. Now, this is kind of a opportunity knocks, right? So I'm going to say that, and I'm going to hit this because LinkedIn is great. It's not the end all, but in this situation, it helped me a little bit. When I was at Duke, we were in a series of labs that were all connected. And so I knew a lot of the people in our neighboring labs. And so I knew the postdocs, and some of them had finished their postdoc and moved on and were doing various things. And one of my former postdoc colleagues, she had finished her postdoc, and I knew that she took a job somewhere else. I didn't really know much about it, but she was one of these people that I had known. We were acquaintances, and in my LinkedIn feed one day it popped up that there was like an update on her, like she had gotten a promotion or something. I thought, gosh, her name was Kathy, and I was like, gosh, Kathy, I wonder what she's getting into. I wonder, how she's doing these days. I know she's working in Durham. It would be really great to reconnect with her. So I sent her an email and I said, hey, Kathy, I hear you have this job, and I just wanted to catch up with you, and I wanted to see, what your job is like. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. So we met at Starbucks and we had this conversation, and I said, okay, what's your job? What do you do? What's it like? What do you like? What do you don't like? And she was working at Camargo, and she said, this is where I was interested in drug development. I was interested in doing regulatory consulting. And so I took this position, and this is what my day to day is like. And I thought, okay, I know nothing about this, but it sounds interesting. You seem really happy. And, so is there any way I can find out more? Can I talk to other people at Camargo? I mean, what would be the next step if I was kind of interested in working there? And she said, well, we have a postdoc internship. So we were going to open up applications in the next few months. You should apply. If you come in and interview, and if you're interested, and if we make you an offer as an intern, you should come and check it out. And so this, I thought, well, what do I have to lose? This is an internship. It was, I can come and, if they made me an offer to be an intern, I would go there. And if I hated it, I could leave. If they hated me, they could make me leave. And so I said, I have nothing to lose here. So I applied, I went and I interviewed, and I met everybody there. And they made me an offer to come in as an intern. And this is an interesting program, and it's a 6-month internship. It's specific for postdocs. You come in and you're expected to be at the office 10 to 12 hours a week. The really cool thing about the internship is that you have access to everything in the company, and you're contributing to actual drug development programs under the advisement of an employee, but you are in there interacting with VPs, CEOs, CSOs. You have access to everyone in the company, and everyone really wants to teach you. So I thought that was a really, exciting opportunity. And so I said, yes, I'm absolutely going to do this internship. And I'm sure this will come up in the discussions I had with my postdoc mentor about how to balance my workload as a postdoc. We can talk about that later. But, I didn't mention this to her. I didn't tell her I was applying for this because I thought, I don't want to rock the boat until I know I'm actually going to be an intern. And when I got the offer and I said, okay, I'm going to do this for my professional development. Don't worry about my productivity. I will be here. I will get everything done. Don't you worry. And everything went pretty well in terms of transitioning into balancing doing my postdoc research and doing the internship.
You probably didn't get much sleep during that.
Well, for more reasons than you might expect, because as I got more involved in the internship, I liked it, and I thought, gosh, what am I going to do? I have these great things happening. So I did lose sleep, not only because, time restraints, but also just thinking about making a decision.
Margo pay you at that time?
You are paid. It's a paid internship. You're paid hourly. So yeah, it's only 10 to 12 hours a week, but go out to dinner and get your drinks after work. So it was nice. I mean, and more than anything, it's that foot in the door to meet people, to network, to get experience, to know what a job like this is even like. And that was really important for me because at that point I had been in academia for, like 12 years. That's all I knew. And I wanted to know that if I'm going to leave that behind, that I'm going to be happy. So this was kind of my foot in the door in transitioning. Now, so this happened, I started the internship in June 2015, so I worked there as an intern in the summer and into the fall. But now, also back in the lab, here I am. Like Lee was saying, there's not much time. I'm doing research. I'm also in parallel applying for academic jobs, and it's a very, very busy time. Now, in addition to doing all of this, things started to come together in my academic job search, and I was invited to come and give some seminars for academic positions. So, when it rains, it pours, right? And so in fall 2015, I was doing the internship, and also I was being, actively interviewed for a faculty position. And so, this was great. I was like, gosh, this is amazing. But the thing that was really interesting to me, from Camargo's perspective, was all of the people there were incredibly supportive of me no matter what I wanted to do. I was completely transparent with them. I said, I'm interviewing for academic positions. I'm going to be gone on these days. I want you to know that I'm still pursuing academic, positions. And they said, that's fine. We're happy for you. If you get a position, we are happy for you no matter what you do. And that was really telling to me that these people were incredibly supportive, not just, in a work environment, but personally and professionally as well. So I got to this point, and I was in a very fortunate position. I had a callback for a faculty position. I had interviewed, and they said, we would really like you to come back for a second interview. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. But at the same time, I also had a job offer from Camargo. They offered me a position about halfway through the internship, and they said, we'd love to have you come on as a research scientist. So this is where things got really tough. And thankfully, both Camargo and my academic lab gave me some time to think about things, because this was a big choice for me, and I wanted to make sure I gave it sufficient thought. Once I made that decision, I felt like if I'm going to Camargo, I'm probably not going to come back to the lab. And in the end, I accepted the job offer, and there was a number of reasons for that. Like I told you before, I lived in the area since 2003. I love living here. I have a great professional support group, friends, family, all of that stuff. So for me to move away, and this job offer or not job offer, but this callback for the faculty position was halfway across the country, and moving to an entirely new place, personally for me, I was really concerned, how am I going to set up my own network of my people in a new place? And at that point, so like I said, I had originally moved here. I had gone to college in Iowa. Moving to North Carolina was a big move, and I had to reestablish myself here. And I honestly didn't want to do that again. Additionally, working at Camargo is a lot of fun. My coworkers are amazing. I have mentors. I have people that I get to mentor. I have very intellectually stimulating work. I get to go and interface with the FDA. I get to go and work with companies on actual drug development programs. So when this came about, and I was like, gosh, I really like this. How could I not take this opportunity? Additionally, working in regulatory consulting, having training in the regulatory field is a really desirable set of it's a really growing job market. And so if you have experience in regulatory, any sort of experience in that area can only help you in your career down the road. So I thought, okay, here we go. I'm making the leap. I'm going to go and work at Camargo. So again, this took me a while to come to this decision, and I'd be glad to talk about it at the end about, the things that I was weighing. But this was the point I got to, and I was very fortunate because I had these two really amazing opportunities happening at the same time. But again, in the end, Camargo won out. So I've mentioned this a little bit. So what exactly is my job? And I've mentioned a little bit that I do drug development and regulatory consulting. Well, what does that actually mean? So you're probably familiar with the series of clinical studies and non-clinical assessments you have to do to get a drug approved. You have a series of formulation developments that a company will have to do to develop a new drug product. You have non-clinical safety assessments. You have clinical studies, phase 1 through 3 studies. And there's all of these associated processes that have to be developed for a drug to be approved. In addition, there's the submission of the application, the NDA submission, and then, of course, phase 4 commitments and safety assessments after the drug is approved. Now, Camargo provides regulatory consulting for all of these things, advising companies, partnering with companies, telling them based on our expertise what we would do, but we also do all of the regulatory writing and documentation. So there's a large piece of my job that's writing, and there's a large piece of my job that's communicating. And so I would say if you have the opportunity to beef up your writing and communication skills, in your training, take every opportunity you can to do so, because that's only going to help you down the road. Now, in addition to these things that are really the formal pieces of a drug development program, there's also kind of the back part here where, number one, you have to have an idea about what a new drug product would be. Is this a feasible product? Is this a marketable product? And then there are a series of face-to-face FDA meetings that you can have during the course of a drug development program. And that's a lot of what Camargo does. We do a lot of FDA-facing interactions where we put together all of the background information and design questions to pose to the agency so that our clients can get clarification on their drug development program so they can save time and money and keep things moving forward as quickly as they can. So that's on a high level. But no, seriously, what do I do? So my job, I came in as a research scientist, and I act as the lead scientist. We also call that a team lead for these drug development and regulatory projects with sponsors, which are pharma companies. And the majority of these sponsors are small to mid-sized companies. We like to say that we work with anyone with an idea and working in their garage, all the way up to people that have secured a lot of money, or they're companies that are already marketing products. We work with a wide range of clients, and in my job, I act as the primary point of contact for these companies, meaning I'm doing a lot of client-facing interactions, teleconferences, emails, kickoff meetings, things like that. But I also work with our team internally to develop scientific and regulatory strategy for the drug development programs. And our team at Camargo is multidisciplinary. We have clinical experts, non-clinical experts, chemists, people that have worked in the industry for 30 plus years. And so you coming in with no experience are drawing off of decades of experience from the internal team. And that was one of the things I really liked about Camargo. There were people there that I could learn from and learn from their experience. And like I said before, we do a lot of writing and editing of regulatory documents. So that's another large piece of what I do. And so here's a typical day. I put these in order of what I probably spend the most time doing down to the least amount. Doing regulatory research and writing, doing internal meetings with my coworkers and having scientific discussions about regulatory strategy, interfacing with clients with calls or emails and advising them, doing client-facing interactions, and I should also say FDA-facing interactions, and managing these projects. So there's a whole lot of skills that you gain working in a job like this. And the types of projects that we do, I mentioned this a little bit before, but FDA-facing meetings, project feasibility and strategic assessments, the investigational new drug applications, and safety updates. These are the main types of projects that we do at Camargo. Now, yes?
FDA,
yes.
Do you have like one person that you work with, or you just like every time you contact the FDA, is it somebody else? Or?
So the FDA is made up of a bunch of different divisions, and within each division there are different project managers. Okay. We typically interface with the project managers. So for each particular project we work with, it's usually a new project manager, although there's some overlap. And at Camargo, we're indication agnostic, so we're going across all divisions, all dosage forms, all of this stuff. So we interact with a lot of different people there. But what I think is really neat about getting able to interface with the FDA, especially when when you go to these on-site meetings, we are going there with our client, and we're taking them there and to give them that face time with the FDA. And I had initially, I guess it's kind of an abstract thing when you've never been to one before, but I envisioned something like this where you're getting up and you're giving a presentation and, you're presenting to the FDA and they're sitting out there in the audience. It's not like that at all, actually. You're in a conference room, a long table. On one side, you have all of your FDA reviewers. It's probably about 15 to 20 people. And on the other side are you and your client. And so that you are asking these reviewers who have reviewed your documents and understand your program, this is what we're doing. This is what we're planning on doing. Is this appropriate? Do you have advice for us? Is this data sufficient for approval? Is this data sufficient to open our clinical trial? These are the sorts of things we're asking about. And I'll get into, a little bit of technical detail about the type of work that we do a little deeper. The type of work that we do, we are trying to help our clients generate products that are can get to the market faster and are cheaper to develop.
In other words, your PhD qualifying exam prepared.
Yes. Here's the thing, though. The FDA doesn't necessarily grill you. It's much more, no chalk talk, thankfully. But I will say that it's much more collegial. We have worked with some sponsors that are like, well, it's us versus the FDA and it's this battle. And it's not really that. They're scientists just like you. They have PhDs just like you. They, have worked at the FDA. Some of them are new reviewers. Some are very experienced reviewers. Some are division directors. So it's much more like a committee meeting where it's a more collegial type of interaction. And I think that is the way it should be. If you have an us versus them mentality, that's no fun. So
each project you meet kind of one group.
Yes.
Every time.
Typically you do. For some programs, so for some programs you might have a meeting that's split into two separate meetings where maybe you're meeting with all of the clinical reviewers in one and the chemistry and manufacturing people in another, just because we work with some programs that are really complex and they think, well, we can't cover all this in an hour. You need an hour for clinical and another hour for manufacturing. So that does happen. But in general, if when we're working with a sponsor on a particular product and we're working with them for their whole program, we will see familiar faces when we go back, and that's always nice. And we do have people at Camargo that are former FDA reviewers, so they come and they see all their old colleagues, and it's fun. In any case. Going to the FDA is a really cool experience.
Do you have to go to Washington frequently then? It sounds like.
Yeah. So how many times? I've been to the FDA for FDA facing meetings 4 times this year already, and I've done 19 meetings. So yeah, I've been there for 3 years. So it's been a lot. And not all of those were going on site. Some of them are teleconferences. The FDA sometimes will also, instead of doing a face-to-face interaction, they'll give you written responses instead of doing an on-site meeting, just because some of the divisions are understaffed, and so they don't have time to do meetings for every single client. And so if they think they can best respond to your questions with a written document, they'll do that. But in total, I've done 19. So it's been a lot, but I've learned a ton. So what exactly do we do at Camargo? Now, this is getting into some technicalities, so I'm going to apologize for that a little bit, but just to give you an idea of what we do. When let's say you are a pharma company and you identify this chemical and you think it's going to cure pancreatic cancer and it's a brand new chemical entity, it's never been administered to an animal or a person or whatever, you as the sponsor will have to do all of the studies to get that product approved. And that's what's called a 505(b)(1) NDA. And what that means is that the sponsor is doing all of the work, all of the non-clinical studies, all of the clinical studies, everything that is going into that application, the sponsor is doing and paying for and has right of reference to. Alternatively, a 505J is your generic program. So you're basically showing equivalence to an approved product. Those requirements for approval are small. You basically show we are the same to this approved product. Your requirements for the FDA are small. At Camargo, we specialize in 505(b)(2) NDAs, which are kind of a hybrid between the two, where you're typically taking an active ingredient that's been previously approved by the FDA and developing a new product. So what does that mean? So let's say, and I think I have a slide on this in a minute of examples of 505(b)(2s, new dosage form, new route of administration. Yes. Okay. Things like that. So what happens is new indication, approved product, new indication. That's also a 505(b)(2). So basically the sponsor is doing some of the studies, but you're also able to rely on publicly available information, including previously approved products. So it's kind of like a generic because you're able to use some of that information that is already out there, but you're also developing a new product. So you have to show safety of your product, you have to show efficacy of your product, but this leads to a smaller overall development program. Adrienne. There is nothing confidential on this slide. I'll admit I have a couple slides on here that are from our marketing group. It's not confidential. This is totally public domain. This was just pulled from a marketing slide deck. But this is all publicly available information. I'm not going to get in trouble, at least I hope. At least the marketing people told me it was okay to use, so they're in the loop. Anyway, so Camargo, we're a little bit of a boutique company because we specialize in these 505(b)(2) applications. We're not the only company in the world that does these. Tons of companies do 505(b)(2s, but I would say 90% of our work is 505(b)(2) programs. So 505(b) what? What? I don't know what this means. So here's examples of some 505(b)(2) programs. So if there's an FDA-approved active ingredient, new indication, dosage form, route of administration, new fixed dose combination, drug device combination, these all fall under the 505(b)(2 realm. Maybe there's an active ingredient that hasn't been FDA approved. Well, you can use published literature to support your development program. So in the end, if you look at this puzzle here, and if this is a drug development program, whether you're, a 505(b)(1) program and you're doing every single study yourself, or you're doing a 505(b)(2) program and you're using some of your own studies and some publicly available information, in the end, you have to have a full, complete puzzle, and you have to meet all of the requirements. The thing that's neat about 505(b)(2) is you have some pieces that are sponsor conducted and some that are publicly available information. But in the end, if you look at an application for a drug, you have to check all the boxes. And so for a B2, you have just a combination of where your source data is coming from. So, like I said, a 505(b)(1) versus a 505(b)(2, the development time is a lot shorter. Right now, a typical B1 program is almost 12 years. A 505(b)(2) on average is 3.5 years, and the development cost is very, very low when you look at how much it costs from start to finish. So we have a lot of companies, they see this and they think, this is amazing. We really want to do something like this. But a lot of people come in with some regulatory knowledge or no regulatory knowledge or regulatory knowledge that's wrong. So we provide a lot of advice and support for clients that we work with to help them reach their goals. And again, strategic drug development. We do a lot of strategizing. We help people assess the commercial viability of a product, the regulatory requirements for a product. Scientifically, can this product be made? And then also, is this an unmet medical need? Are you going to be able to market this product? We do spend a lot of time thinking about these sorts of things for our sponsors. Now, going back to what I do in my job every day. Like I said, I'm working as a team lead, and you are paired up with a strategy lead, which is usually a vice president level person that has 20 plus years of drug development experience, and you're interfacing at the top there with a sponsor. But not only that, you're not just responsible to the sponsor, you're responsible to all of these other folks within the company to put together a good quality product. That's your non-clinical expert, your pharmacokineticist, your clinical expert. All of these people, you're all working together to put together a really good product for the sponsor. Now, at first glance, this might look really overwhelming, and you think, oh my gosh, how in the world do you manage all of this? yes, it's a lot to learn, but you're part of a team and all of these people also support you. So that was one of the other things that I learned in the internship is you're not on an island. You're interfacing with all these people, but they're also there to support you. When you're on a call with the sponsor and if you don't know the answer, someone else in this team will. So it's a really good environment to work in. Again, there's a learning curve. So I listed off some of the things here that I had to learn and that I'm still learning, to be honest with you. So you have to understand drug development, the language of regulatory, FDA requirements, regulatory strategy, how to have a client-facing interaction, business sense, where are your clients coming from, what's important to them, internal processes within the company, who interacts with who reports to who, how do you get something done, finance wants to know how you're doing on those projects, when can we bill, and then sales. At the end of a project, you have a happy sponsor. What can we sell you next? What programs are you working on next? What else can we do for you? These are all things that in this job you get exposure to and you learn. And so it's a lot at first. It's a lot, but you do learn it. The longer you do it, the more you pick up, the more intuitive it becomes. Now, transferable skills. So as a PhD student, as a postdoc, you manage your project. I can't tell you how important this is as you transition out of academia into industry. Understanding how to manage a project and lots of moving pieces is really helpful. Multitasking. Most of you don't just work on one project probably. You're probably working on a lot of different projects. You had to learn about these projects and the background and all this stuff. Multitasking is a real asset. You can learn and understand complex information. You are super smart. You can take what you've learned here and apply it to drug development. Absolutely, 100%. You are curious, you're creative. These are things that the industry values. So these are things that you can leverage when you go and work in the industry. And then, of course, if you're working in UNC Pharmacology, I know you have a really good work ethic. So, that is also going to help you. And again, like I said, things like scientific writing, you guys do. I'll always try to get as much exposure and assistance in scientific writing if that's something that's a challenge for you. Communication. Can you write an email that communicates your message that's really clear and concise? Can you present a message that's very clear and concise? So with this, these are just some of the transferable skills that I could think of off the top of my head, and there's probably even more that I don't have on this list, but I want you to know that just because you've been in academia for a number of years, you can take these skills and transition them. Okay, tips and tricks I've learned along the way. Some, I've learned the hard way, some I've just learned. In your training, take advantage of all the learning opportunities. Now, here in professional organizations, in development programs. When I was at Duke, they had a program that was called the K Club, and that was for helping you to learn how to write a K grant. Now, at that time, I was going to become a professor, so I jumped into that program and I learned how to write a grant. They gave you all this assistance on writing, and I cannot tell you how beneficial that was for me in my job now that's not in academia. So taking advantage of all of these things that are available to you at the university and through professional organizations is really important because you never know when you're going to use them. You're going to pick up a skill somewhere that you're going to use 5 years down the road. Network and with people that you actually know and know you. I don't mean like going to a networking event, you meet a stranger and then you think, oh my gosh, I'm going to get a job. That's not how it works. It's really not. The people that are your network are the people you know in this department, the people that you're going to meet in your postdoc if you choose to do a postdoc, the people that you've worked with that can actually vouch for you and say, Joe is a really hard worker and they're super smart and we'd be really lucky to have them at our company. So keep that in mind. Networking events are great and it's good for you to learn about different careers and everything, but that's not, in my experience, that's not really the way to get a job. The way I got in at Camargo was because I knew Kathy and she was able to, recommend this postdoc internship for me. And so she knew me, I knew her. She knew I was a really hard worker and I had done X, Y, and Z in my postdoc. So having that sort of, network is really important. Show up, and I'm serious. When you have an opportunity, show up ready to learn, to not be distracted with your phone or a paper or whatever. Show up ready to learn and absorb everything that you can. And this is also true if you have the opportunity to do an internship like I did. You know, in the internship, there would be an opportunity to go and just sit and observe meetings with clients or internal meetings. And it means a lot more if you show up without your phone, without any other distractions, and you're actually listening and interacting and asking questions versus the alternative, which is like not even actually being there. Listen. There are a lot of people out there that want to help you. And when you go and interact with people in your network, or if you have the opportunity to do an internship or something, you know, listen to them and also ask them questions. How did they get here? What have they done? Who were their mentors? Who, you know, what were the important lessons you learned along the way? What are the things that are important to you at a job? You know, but also ask the technical questions. Don't be embarrassed to feel like you don't know something. That kind of falls into this, be open-minded and be humble. I went into this internship and I was like, I know nothing. You have to explain everything to me. But I had mentors there that were like, yes, we know. You're coming right out of your postdoc. We don't expect you to have regulatory expertise. We want to teach you these things. So be open-minded and be humble. And talk to people, ask them about their life, ask them about their hobbies. You know, being a real person and establishing relationships with your coworkers is really important. You might not realize it, but, you know, the people I work with are amazing and they're people I consider my friends. So, you know, having that sort of relationship is really important moving forward. Position yourself for success. And what I mean by this is, in order to be successful, you have to work hard. But there are also these things that people don't talk about enough. And I think I don't know if people want to talk about it, but there's also luck and timing. But luck and timing mean nothing if you haven't worked really hard. So keep that in mind. And I wanted to give an example here about positioning yourself for success. When I was an intern, when I started out, every Monday morning, the research services group has a meeting every morning, Monday morning, 9:30. We go through the active projects, what's going on, are we having issues, how we can help each other. And for me, I thought, wow, you know, all research services is here. They're talking about every single project. I should go to this meeting. I should make it work. No matter what's happening at Duke, I'm going to be here at this meeting and I'm going to listen and I'm going to learn and I'm going to interact with the whole research services group and they're going to see me here wanting to learn. And I got an opportunity because of participating in that meeting. So we had a situation once where we had a sponsor. They were getting ready for an FDA meeting. And they're an interesting group. It was a small group that was going to go to the FDA. From the sponsor side, it was just two people. It was like the CEO and the CSO or something. And they were like, okay, we're getting ready for this FDA meeting. And we had one person that was going from Camargo. The sponsor said, we just want another person from Camargo to attend so that we look bigger. So internally we're like, okay, everyone's really busy. They just want a physical body there. Let's send an intern. So I got to go to an FDA meeting as an intern, which was pretty incredible. So I got to go up there and see the prep meeting for the FDA meeting and actually go to the FDA meeting. And, you know, I didn't understand half of what they were talking about at the time, but I took all the notes and I, you know, was there to be supportive for the sponsor. And, but again, if I hadn't realized that it was good to be seen and get exposure and learn from being in this meeting, I probably wouldn't have had that opportunity and be there to raise my hand saying like, yes, I want to go, I'll go. So keep that in mind.
So
yes.
The thing about this, you know, as a scientist, you come into a new project.
Yes.
What do? You go to the literature, right?
Yep.
Is there anything to read? Is there anything to kind of that you can do that doesn't require just learning on the fly?
Yeah. So what I will say specific to regulatory, there's marketing would want me to tell you we have a blog. That's great. But There are regulatory professional groups in the area I would recommend. If you're really interested in doing this sort of work, you can go. I think, if you're a student or postdoc, the dues are like maybe $30 a year or something, and you get to go to all the meetings and learn about regulatory and learn about drug development. So there's stuff like that. In terms of reading, honestly, a great resource is the FDA's website. They have it sounds funny, but they have a really great Twitter feed. They're posting stuff all the time, new guidances, advisory committee meetings that are ongoing. You can learn a lot from that, and all that's public. So that's another great resource. So yeah, those are a couple things I would recommend if you're interested in something like this. So I hope this has been somewhat helpful to you all, but the thing I want you to keep in mind as you're moving forward and in academia or whatever you choose to do is to just be open-minded, and that was one thing that was really important for me. And one other thing, be proactive, but also be patient. Be patient with yourself. It takes a lot of time to realize what you want to do. It takes a lot of time to make a decision to leave an academic environment that you've known for years and years. So be proactive, but also be patient. And be open to new opportunities. If I hadn't been open to doing an internship and something I knew nothing about, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. But, this has led to some fun stuff. I mean, you get to go, and this guy on the left there, that's our president, Ken Phelps. I got to go and do some business development work at DCAT this year in New York City. That's me with him in his Tesla. This is me doing some recruitment work with one of my coworkers at NC State. This is me. This is me and one of our founders at Disneyland at a scientific conference. And then this is we had our 15-year anniversary at Camargo this year. So this is the people at the Durham office and our families. We're a very family-focused company, so all the families got to come for our 15-year anniversary celebration. So, with that's all I've got for you. So I'll take questions.
So as someone looking to finish up PhD and looking at next opportunities, knowing that I don't want to stay in academia and I want to go into industry of some sort, would you advise getting a postdoc for additional experience, or trying to get an internship or a job, or what would you recommend?
I think all of those things are good options. I think the hard thing about, if you know 100% you don't want to do an academia career, the hard thing about committing to a postdoc is the time goes by really fast. You think, I'm going to go in and do a year or two of postdoc, that will become 5 years really fast. And so I would caution you against going into an academic postdoc. Now, I don't know if this is still a thing, but I recall that there are some pharma companies that are doing postdoc internships. That might be a good option, or doing a postdoc at a pharma company, something like that. I think I would just look at everything and just apply for everything, and then as you get opportunities, just keep an open mind and give it a try. And just because you do a postdoc at a pharma company doesn't mean you have to do pharma for the rest of your life. I mean, if I wanted to and I wanted to go work at GSK or something, I feel like I could go and work there and make some sort of a transition there. So don't think that you're in a corner no matter what you decide to do.
As a follow-up to that, if you had gotten this position, if you had not done a postdoc, would you have come in at the same level that you came in at having done the postdoc? And is there the same opportunity for moving up?
Yes. So our entry-level position is a research scientist position, and you have that coming in with postdoc experience as an intern or not as an intern. It's the same entry-level position. And right now, actually, no. So here's the thing. So one of the funny things, the requirement for a research scientist at Camargo is you have to have at least 1 year of postdoc experience. And I kind of push back against that because I'm like, I don't really know if you need it, but they want you to have a little bit more experience before coming in. Independence, I think that it's kind of I don't want to say a maturity thing, but I think they want it to be kind of like you have a little bit more independence and independent thinking before you come in.
Yeah, it seems to me too that part of it is how certain are you that you want to do it, right? If you're saying, well, academics, yeah, maybe, but maybe I'm thinking more about that. You don't want to close your doors.
Absolutely.
Right? So that can often, I think, change your thinking. if you said, there's no way, I don't want to do that, I want to go into farm, that's your goal, then I think your decisions change a little bit.
I ask everyone that same question. Everyone gives me a slightly different answer. So it's really helpful just to hear all the different perspectives.
Yeah.
So can I
Yes.
different perspective from the point of someone who hires postdocs, that if you tell someone, I'd like to do a postdoc, but I don't want it to be 5 years, I want to be here for a year or two, and then I want to go into industry. There are some people who will say, fine, goodbye, and there are other people who will say, okay, great, let's figure out the kind of project that will work for that.
Yeah, that's true.
So the whole point about communication and so forth is really important. And because there are so many industry jobs that want you to have an academic postdoc first, it's important to know that that's an option, to do a short academic postdoc.
I would just say, it was a very courageous decision for you to do that. I thought of all this, but it also required that your mentor was willing to say, I'll give you that time, and probably not all would.
Yeah, I'll elaborate on that a little bit because I get that question a lot. How did I manage my postdoc advisor through this? So like I said before, I did not tell her I was applying for this internship because I didn't know if I was going to be offered the internship. And also at the same time was still applying for academic positions. So there was that level of complexity as well. When I told her that I had this opportunity to do an internship and that I wanted to do this for my own professional development, she was supportive of that. But she did say, I feel bad that you feel like you have to do this. And I said, well, I'm doing this for me. And I don't want you to worry about productivity or anything like that. I mean, I just basically, did the 10 to 12 hours at Camargo and then just shifted my schedule. I don't think there was any loss of productivity on my end. And so, there was that. The more difficult discussion was when I had the job opportunity and I was going to accept the job at Camargo. That was a much more difficult discussion. And
Because of her reaction, or because of, was that from you or from her?
I would say both.
Both, okay.
Because she had envisioned, and she had this envision for me as my mentor, that we were going to collaborate over the course of our careers, right? She had this vision for me. And she was sad, frankly. And because of the way that our lab was structured, at that time, I was the only postdoc, and so there was a lot of things that I had to put in place before I left, SOPs, all sorts of stuff that I had been managing myself. And thankfully, Camargo was very understanding of that, and they didn't expect me to come on right after I accepted. They actually let me, continue at Duke and transition to Camargo for about 6 weeks, so that gave me time to transition everything I was doing to other people in the lab. But it was still really hard, and, I think that my postdoc advisor was, disappointed, and it's a terrible thing to disappoint someone, especially someone you consider your mentor. But at the same time, I know I made the right choice, and I made this choice for myself. And if, I had gone through all of this work, and, not everyone that comes into the internship gets a job offer. So I've considered myself very lucky to have the opportunity. So, it was really complicated and difficult. And, I had a lot of friendships in the lab too, and it was hard to leave that behind, not to mention all of the things I had learned how to do and develop myself there. So I think it's really complicated. But what's interesting is a lot of people in our office had very similar experiences. Everyone in our office could have been a faculty person. They all had been successful getting funding. Everyone has done amazing work, but we had to make a decision for our life, not just, and that's the thing. In academia, I would have loved to come and work here. It would have been an amazing thing for me. But, after I got a taste of what I could also do and the things that I do now, which I also get excited about, I was like, gosh, I could be excited doing something completely different. And so, and that's specific to the person too. Yeah. Yes.
What about the situation with the change? Did you pursue a callback over Camargo? And then
Oh yeah. What did I say to them?
I may or may not have a follow-up.
Or are you talking about what did I tell the committee at?
Well, I guess what would the faculty position or the university offering the faculty position or callback? We just sweeten the pot to.
Oh, what could they have done?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there was something.
$1 million.
Yeah, that's right.
In the confines of
Private swimming pool. No, I'm kidding. So there were some things they couldn't change. The fact that they were thousands of miles away. That was the main thing. The other thing was it was a department that was, I would be working with people that were in my field, and that would have been amazing. But personally, I did not want to uproot myself again. So in that regard, I couldn't do it.
That is a quick follow-up.
Yes.
Let's say your husband got a job position somewhere in the same area. Would that have influenced you at all?
No, I'm glad you brought this up because, like I said, your career doesn't happen in a vacuum. And I have a husband that's amazing and supportive. And so we met when I was in graduate school. And he's a mechanical engineer, and he went to NC State, and he's worked in this area, and his professional network is all here. And the thing is he saw everything I had done in my academic career and how hard I had worked and everything I had sacrificed. And he said, I am not weighing in on your choice. I support you no matter what you choose. If you want to go take this job, I will find a job there. You do not need to worry about that. I support you 100% no matter what you choose, whether it's here or whether it's there. So I'm really lucky in that regard. Yes.
That's pretty good.
It is pretty good. He's a keeper. He's a keeper.
Doesn't happen all.
I know. Yes.
So just a question about you were saying you needed 1 year postdoc experience to even be considered for the entry-level research scientist. I was curious, what would happen if you, say, had worked at another company in, say, regulatory affairs or as a consultant? Would that be an easier way to get in, not to say avoid the postdoc, but to get that other experience to make you marketable?
Absolutely. We hire people with previous regulatory experience as well. We've had some people come in that have, like you're saying, maybe a year or two of entry-level regulatory experience. We hire those type of people. We also hire people with more experience at, the next level up potentially. So yeah, that would be another way. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
It doesn't seem like I don't really know how big your company is. How many other people like at the same level are there like you? And are you guys expanding all the time?
So, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too. So the company is about 60 people right now. Our headquarters is in Cincinnati. The Durham office is kind of like a branch office. In research services, I want to say we make up about, 30 people. We're about half the company, but that includes our specialists, research scientists, people that come in like me. I would say there are probably about 12 to 15 of us. And we are growing a lot. We just hired a new CEO and he wants to grow. So, so we're growing. Yeah, it is. It's a growing market and they want us to be the leaders in the 505(b)(2) space. So our salespeople are always out looking for work. We have a lot of repeat business. So, yes.
Just because he brought it up, can you talk a little bit about growth or promotion opportunities in your position?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So I've always been of the mindset that if you know what the expectations are for, let's say you have, a series of positions going up the ranks. If you know what those are, and if you know what the expectations are for the next level up, the best way for you to position yourself for a promotion is do the job that's the next level up. And then when you say, I would really like to be promoted, look, I'm already doing everything that this level person is doing. That's the best thing that you can do for yourself. And that's what I did after I came in and I got promoted. I basically said, listen, I'm doing everything that a specialist is doing. I'd like to get promoted. And I was. So and that's one of these things where Camargo they've invested a lot of time in the last couple of years in career pathing, which is a thing. And do you want to go like an executive route or a specialist route or what have you? And once you make that decision, you get mentorship and training. And as soon as they think that you're ready for that next step, they will promote you. We do quarterly evaluations, which is kind of excessive, but it does give you the opportunity to talk about these things fairly often. Yes.
So is the internship offered to your company, is it only for postdocs or do you guys bring in some, like you said?
it's actually only for postdocs. And I think that's one of the things that made it unique. And in that way, it's unfortunate because I would love it if we could open it up to graduate students. But for all of us that came in as interns, we all had this shared experience of going through grad school and being a postdoc. And we had a lot of, things in common. So that actually was a nice thing. We had a lot of camaraderie in that way. Thank you.
So that's our first installment of the Lab to Life series, which will probably be a recurring episode series in conjunction with the UNC Pharmacology Department. Again, thank you to UNC Pharmacology and Nicole Arnold for letting me jump in and record this. And of course, thank you again to Dr. Lisa Crose for coming on. I thought this was really great, and we hope to have more people who were alumni of UNC Pharmacology to come in and just talk about their experience in getting a job and their journey throughout their lives afterwards. If you like this episode, please give us feedback and let us know what we could do better in terms of recording in a local setting, because we're probably going to extend this sort of local recording, give you a fly-on-the-wall experience for other types of seminars at UNC. That's going to be it here for us at the Straight From Scientist podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and especially if you provided feedback or are a sponsor of the podcast. If you'd like to become a supporter, you can go to patreon.com/SFS podcast. Another way to support the podcast is through our affiliation with Plant Warrior. So Plant Warrior produces 100% natural vegan protein, does not contain any whey nor any artificial sweeteners, but it still has all 20 essential amino acids. And on top of that, Plant Warrior pledges to plant 1 tree for every protein bag purchased. It's 100% money back guaranteed, so you can try it risk-free, and in the meantime, support the SFS podcast as well as get a tree planted. If you want to support the SFS podcast by buying a bag of Plant Warrior protein, you can use the discount code SFS10 for 10% off. Just make sure that the discount applies when you go to checkout. It won't apply in your cart. Thanks all for listening again, and we hope you enjoy each and every episode.